They left us to die on a burning planet and called us too violent, too broken, too human. But in the silence between stars, we built something they never expected, an empire forged in shadows. Today, the most powerful fleet in the galaxy will vanish not by alien hands, but by the very species they tried to erase. If you think humanity is done, think again. The Ghost Fleet is real. And we've just begun. The stars were never kind to humanity. When the United Galactic Federation discovered Earth, they deemed humanity unfit for integration, too aggressive, too unpredictable, and too emotional. They placed sanctions forbidding trade colonization or technological aid. The verdict was clear. Humanity was to remain stranded on its dying homeworld, a species doomed to rot in the shadow of greater civilizations. But the Federation underestimated one thing: humanity's refusal to die quietly. Earth was suffocating. Resources dwindled, wars over scraps intensified, and the Federation stood back watching like indifferent gods. They had the power to help, but they had already decided not worth saving. But in the darkest corners of the world, in underground bunkers and hidden laboratories, a different future was being written. Brilliant minds, scientists, engineers, hackers, and warlords came together driven by one purpose: survival. They scavenged technology from black market dealers, reverse-engineered alien systems, and pushed their own sciences beyond limits. The Federation believed them contained, but they were building something. A fleet. A ghost in the machine. A whisper in the void. They called it the Ghost Fleet, born from desperation, fueled by defiance, and ready to haunt the galaxy that had cast them aside. When the time came, they would emerge not as supplicants, but as conquerors. Their first target, a Federation supply hub crucial to their military operations, a silent giant of logistics that would crumble without a fight. Part I ended with Vorn's declaration: "We're not just here to survive anymore, we're here to conquer." He tapped the holographic map, marking the first target. The Ghost Empire had risen. The first target was the Federation's primary deep space logistics hub, designated Nexus 7. It was a colossal, self-sustaining orbital station, bristling with automated defenses but manned by a skeleton crew deemed too vital and too secure to warrant heavy guard. Its true weakness was its reliance on complex, interconnected systems, a web of automated protocols and logistical algorithms. This was the Ghost Empire's specialty, honed by centuries of clandestine development and desperate ingenuity. Admiral Vorn, now a living legend within the Ghost Empire, his face etched with the lines of countless sleepless nights and impossible decisions, stood on the bridge of the Wraith, his flagship. The Wraith was more than a ship. It was a testament to human defiance, its hull shimmering with cloaking technology so advanced it seemed to absorb light itself, bending space-time around its presence. Around him, his officers moved with the silent, efficient precision of a well-oiled machine, each a prodigy in their own right, hand-picked for their brilliance and unwavering loyalty to the cause. KL, the enigmatic strategist, observed the holographic projection of Nexus 7, his expression unreadable, his mind already calculating a dozen contingencies. Auri, the brilliant young technopath, her dark hair pulled back from a face often pale from intense mental strain, had her eyes closed, her brow furrowed in intense concentration. Her mind, a living conduit, was dancing through the countless data streams radiating from the Federation hub, seeking the weakest points in its digital armor. Auri's status on the infiltration. Vorn's voice was a low growl, barely a whisper that carried across the bridge, cutting through the tense silence. "Almost through the primary firewall, Admiral," Auri responded, her voice tight with effort, a vein throbbing faintly in her temple. "Their network is more robust than anticipated. Old Federation protocols designed for redundancy, not stealth. Layers upon layers of encrypted subroutines, but I'm finding the seams." "Redundancy is a weakness against a mind like yours, Auri." Kale interjected a rare hint of a genuine smile touching his usually stoic lips. "It just gives you more routes to exploit, more vulnerabilities to leverage. They built a fortress with too many gates." The Ghost Fleet was not built for brute force, at least not yet. Their strength lay in their unique blend of advanced human ingenuity and meticulously reverse-engineered alien tech pushed beyond its original design parameters. They exploited the Federation's rigid adherence to established protocols, their predictable tactical doctrines, and their deeply ingrained arrogance. For centuries, the Federation had believed humanity to be a lesser species, incapable of innovation beyond crude aggression, too emotional to truly master advanced logic. This profound underestimation was their greatest vulnerability, a blind spot woven into the very fabric of their galactic dominance. They had bottled up a dying species only to create a virulent, untraceable strain of defiance, a weapon honed in the crucible of neglect and forgotten promises. Hours stretched into what felt like an eternity. The tension on the Wraith's bridge was palpable, a silent, almost painful hum that vibrated through the deck plates. Finally, after what felt like an age, Auri's eyes snapped open, a triumphant, almost exhausted spark in their depths. Done. Nexus 7 is blind, Admiral. All external sensor arrays are feeding pre-recorded loops, old traffic patterns, routine patrols. Internal security systems are reporting green across the board, but they're seeing ghosts, phantom echoes of their own automated responses. Automated defenses are inert, awaiting orders that will never come from their command center or from any real threat. A ripple of relief, quickly suppressed, moved through the command crew, each officer allowing themselves a fleeting moment of exhaled breath. Vorn nodded slowly, a grim satisfaction in his gaze. Perfect. Ghost 1, Ghost 2, proceed with boarding protocols. Disable the central control nexus, but leave the primary logistics data intact. We need their supply chains, their strategic intelligence, not their rubble. Their resources are our resources now. Two smaller vessels, the Shadow and the Phantom, detached from the Wraith's underbelly. These were purpose-built infiltration ships, sleek and silent, designed to slip through even the tightest defenses. Their crews were specialized operatives, humans trained not just in stealth and close-quarters combat, but in the delicate art of bypassing alien security systems with a finesse born of desperation and ingenuity. They were the silent vanguard of the Ghost Empire, the hands that pulled the strings behind the scenes, leaving behind only questions and an unsettling void. The operation at Nexus 7 was a textbook example of Ghost Empire efficiency and ruthless precision. There were no grand explosions, no epic space battles lighting up the void. The Federation only realized Nexus 7 was compromised hours later when their automated supply requests went unanswered and their distant monitoring stations reported inexplicable, continuous, all-clear signals masking an internal vacuum, a complete lack of activity. By the time a scouting party was dispatched, weeks later navigating through the now desolate station, they found the station's central control nexus locked down its systems, purged of any Federation presence, and a single chilling message etched onto the main view screen in glowing binary, a message that spoke directly to their deepest fears: the Ghost Fleet remembers. The vast warehouses of supplies, munitions, and fuel enough to sustain entire fleet operations for months were gone, spirited away into the void as if by magic. The loss of Nexus 7 sent shockwaves through the Federation, reverberating through every level of their monolithic bureaucracy. It wasn't just a logistical setback, it was a profound psychological blow. The invincible Federation, the undisputed power of the galaxy, had been outmaneuvered, outsmarted by a species they had written off as primitive and irrelevant. This wasn't a conventional attack, it was an act of surgical precision, a phantom limb lopping off a vital artery, leaving a bleeding, inexplicable wound. "They're faster than we thought," muttered Commander Valerius, a grizzled Federation officer, his face etched with disbelief as he reviewed the incident report for the 10th time. "And smarter. Much smarter. This wasn't some desperate raid by dying primitives. This was planned, executed with malicious, chilling genius." He slammed his fist on the data table. "How could we have been so blind?" Admiral Tyro, head of Federation Internal Security, a reptilian Cathar known for his unwavering ruthlessness, slammed his multi-jointed fist on his desk, sending tremors through the comms room. "Sanctions containment. We cut them off from everything. How could they possibly have developed this technology? This stealth, this level of cyber warfare? Their homeworld was a swamp of internal conflict. His frustration was palpable, his belief system shattered. The Federation, in its arrogant, self-serving wisdom, had dismissed human ingenuity as mere aggression, human resilience as mere stubbornness. They had failed to understand that humanity's greatest strength lay not in brute force, but in its adaptability, its relentless drive to survive against impossible odds, and its boundless capacity for innovation when pushed to the brink of extinction. They had bottled up a dying species only to create a virulent, untraceable strain of defiance, a weapon honed in the crucible of neglect and forgotten promises. Back on the Wraith, deep within the newly acquired supply caches of Nexus 7, Vorn reviewed the spoils of their victory. The data from Nexus 7's logistics mainframe was invaluable, a treasure trove of Federation vulnerabilities. It contained detailed schematics of every Federation supply route, every critical resupply point, every major troop deployment, and most importantly, the exact locations and security vulnerabilities of colonial planets ripe for liberation. "Their empire is a house of cards," Vorn observed, tracing a line on the holographic map, a predatory gleam in his eyes. "They control through bureaucracy and fear not loyalty. Cut the right threads and the whole tapestry unravels. We won't defeat them with fleets alone, we'll unravel them from within." Ari, analyzing the newly acquired data with a voracious appetite, chimed in her fingers, dancing over the holographic interface. "And the threads are surprisingly brittle, Admiral. Multiple colonial worlds are showing high levels of unrest far beyond what Federation reports acknowledge. Resources being siphoned off by distant overseers, excessive taxation leading to widespread poverty, forced labor camps working sentient beings to death. They're ripe for an uprising. The seeds of rebellion are already planted." Kale leaned forward, his gaze fixed on the expanding holographic projections. "We don't just hit their military, we hit their economy, we hit their control. We show their subjugated worlds that the Federation is not invincible, that there is another option. We don't just take their supplies, we give hope." The Ghost Empire shifted its strategy from mere survival and opportunistic raids to a calculated, audacious campaign of galactic liberation. No longer would they simply raid. They would sow discontent. They would spark revolution. Their next targets were not military strongholds, but the economic arteries of the Federation, resource-rich planets, key manufacturing hubs, and trade routes that served as lifelines for the Federation's bloated bureaucracy. The Liberation Campaign began a systematic unraveling of the Federation's hold on the galaxy. The Ghost Fleet would strike silently, appearing out of nowhere like true specters, disabling Federation garrisons and orbital defenses with surgical precision. But instead of destroying infrastructure, they would free the enslaved populations, hand over control of resources, and provide them with the means to defend themselves. Advanced weapon schematics, reverse-engineered from Federation tech, simplified energy shield generators, and decentralized communication networks that bypassed Federation surveillance. They wouldn't conquer these worlds. They would empower them, turning former slaves into staunch allies. One of the most notable early successes was the liberation of Xylos Prime, a moon rich in exotic minerals brutally mined by the Federation for centuries to fuel their war machine. Its native population, the Xylian, a species of gentle bioluminescent subterranean dwellers, had been enslaved for generations, forced into brutal labor in the deep mines. The Ghost Fleet appeared like a phantom, disabling the Federation mining vessels and orbital defenses without a single Xylian life, lost, a testament to their precision and commitment to minimal collateral damage. Admiral Vorn landed personally, a rare but impactful move, accompanied by Kale and Auri. He met with the Xylian Elders, a solemn, wizened group of beings whose light flickered with generations of pain. "We are not here to replace your masters," Vorn stated, his voice resonating with sincerity and a quiet strength. "We are here to help you reclaim your freedom, your heritage, and your future. The Federation has exploited you. We offer you the tools to break their chains and the knowledge to forge your own destiny." The Xylian Elders, initially wary, their ancient culture steeped in caution, watched as human engineers began to meticulously dismantle the Federation's automated mining rigs, replacing them with more efficient, less destructive extraction methods that utilized Xylian labor fairly with respect for their ecosystem. Ori, working tirelessly, set up secure comms linking Xylos Prime with other nascent resistance movements the Ghost Empire had identified and cultivated across the galaxy. Kyle provided tactical training, teaching the Xylian how to defend their newfound freedom against inevitable Federation retaliation, adapting human combat doctrines to the Xylians' unique physiology and underground environment. The Xylian liberation became a powerful symbol across the subjugated worlds. News of the Ghost Empire's altruistic, albeit ruthless towards the Federation, actions spread like wildfire across the subjugated worlds, carried by encrypted data bursts and whispered rumors. The Federation's propaganda machine, once all-powerful, struggled to counter the narratives of freedom and empowerment. They painted humanity as a rogue, unpredictable force, trading one master for another, a greater evil hidden behind a veil of false promises. But the proof was in the pudding. Planets that had once been downtrodden and exploited were now flourishing under their own governance, armed with technology and knowledge freely shared by the Ghosts. Their economies rebounded, their cultures revitalized, and their populations once resigned to slavery now stood tall with renewed purpose. Admiral Tyro, increasingly desperate and facing growing pressure from a fragmented Federation Council, ordered a massive military buildup, diverting resources from other sectors, even pulling vital defensive fleets from core worlds. "We must crush this rebellion before it spreads further," he thundered at the Council, his voice filled with a venomous fury. "This ghost empire is a cancer festering in the shadows. They are not liberators. They are opportunists using these weak-willed primitives as pawns in a larger, more sinister game. They will eventually turn on them just as they will turn on us." But his words rang increasingly hollow. The Federation military, designed for large-scale conventional warfare for grand, decisive fleet engagements, found itself ill-equipped to combat a phantom enemy that struck with surgical precision, then vanished without a trace. Their vast fleets became ponderous, slow targets easy to outmaneuver and disrupt. Their intelligence networks, once considered impenetrable, were constantly being breached by Auri's unparalleled hacking abilities, leaving them blind and vulnerable. Federation commanders were forced to confront a foe that defied all their established tactical manuals, a foe that seemed to exist outside of their reality. One crucial turning point in the liberation campaign was the Battle of the Veil, a system notorious for its dense, nebula-choked regions, making traditional sensor sweeps and FTL travel nearly impossible. The Federation had amassed a significant fleet there, hoping to trap a portion of the Ghost Fleet that had been seen liberating a nearby system. Admiral Vorn, however, had anticipated this move with chilling accuracy. "They're coming for us in the Veil Kale," Vorn said, reviewing the latest intelligence from Auri's deep space probes. "They think the nebula is their advantage, their impenetrable fortress. We'll make it theirs, yes, but to their detriment." KL grinned, a rare, cold flash of amusement that spoke of calculated violence. "Ambushes in nebulae. How wonderfully old-fashioned of them. They think we fight by their rules." Auri had spent weeks, almost to the point of exhaustion, mapping the Veil's unique energy currents, atmospheric distortions, and localized gravitational anomalies. Her exhaustive work allowed the Ghost Fleet's cloaking technology to become virtually undetectable within the nebula, merging seamlessly with the swirling gas and dust, becoming extensions of the cosmic environment itself. When the Federation fleet, confident in their numerical superiority and the nebula's cover, entered the Veil, they were met not by an ambush in the traditional sense, but by a chilling, absolute silence. Their sensors reported nothing but static and background radiation. Then, one by one, their ship's power cores began to flicker their weapons, systems inexplicably rerouted to friendly targets, their communications jammed with bursts of distorted ancient human war cries, not recorded audio but complex, fear-inducing psychoacoustic signatures that overloaded their comms arrays. Panic erupted across the Federation fleet. Unable to see their enemy, unable to communicate, unable to trust their own systems, they began firing wildly, hitting their own ships in the confusion, their discipline shattering under the invisible pressure. The Ghost Fleet, moving like wraiths, systematically disabled command vessels, communications, arrays, and engine rooms, never engaging in a direct firefight, never risking a full-scale engagement. They didn't destroy, they demoralized. They dismantled from within, preying on the Federation's fear and paranoia. Commander Valerius, who found himself on a crippled vessel watching in horror as his own fleet tore itself apart in a cataclysm of friendly fire, understood the chilling truth. "They're not fighting us," he whispered, his eyes wide with dawning existential terror. "They're making us fight ourselves. They're making us remember our own weaknesses, our own internal fractures." He watched as a nearby cruiser, its shields inexplicably turned off, was torn apart by a volley from its own allies. This isn't warfare. It's a psychological purge. The Battle of the Veil was not a battle won by firepower, but by psychological warfare and technological superiority. The Federation suffered catastrophic losses, losing over a third of its assembled forces without ever seeing their true adversary. The message was clear: there was nowhere to hide, no defense against an enemy that could simply unmake your ability to fight, that could turn your own strengths against you. The Federation began to fracture with alarming speed. Internal dissent, long suppressed by a rigid hierarchy and fear of reprisal, boiled to the surface. Member worlds questioned the leadership of Admiral Tyro and the Council. The cost of endless, unwinnable war was too high, the resource drain unsustainable. The Ghost Empire was no longer a phantom menace. It was a tangible, unstoppable force empowering revolts and independence movements across their vast, crumbling territory. Entire sectors declared secession, forming their own independent defense forces, often utilizing the very technology shared by the Ghost Fleet. On Earth, a world slowly healing from centuries of neglect, the news of the Ghost Empire's conquest spread with a mix of awe and trepidation. Elias Vorn, now a respected elder on Soraya 4, a testament to humanity's resilience, watched the reports with a grim satisfaction. His daughter, a young woman now, her spirit unburdened by the past, looked at the holographic maps tracing the expanding blue swaths of liberated systems. "They're really doing it, aren't they, Father?" she asked, a touch of wonder in her voice. "They are," Elias replied, his voice heavy with the weight of history. "They're reshaping the galaxy. But war, no matter how righteous, leaves scars, even for ghosts. And the hardest part is not the winning, but the building that comes after." Arlandrax, the former Federation officer who had chosen humanity over his own empire, now lived in quiet retirement on a small biodiverse moon, advising a newly formed interspecies peacekeeping force. He understood the necessity of humanity's actions, the desperate measures required to secure their survival and exact justice. But he also saw the dangerous path they walked. "Vorn seeks to dismantle the Federation's empire," he mused to his protege, a young Xylosian diplomat. "But what comes after? Can an empire born of shadows truly build a lasting light, or will the shadows eventually consume it?" He knew the allure of vengeance could be as destructive as oppression itself. Back on the Wraith, Admiral Vorn looked at the holographic map, its vibrant blues consuming more and more of the Federation's fading red. "The Federation is on its knees," Ori announced, her voice filled with a quiet pride that mirrored the satisfaction in the room. "Their core worlds are next. Helios Prime itself is showing signs of internal strife." KL, ever the pragmatist, raised a point, his gaze scanning the remaining pockets of Federation resistance. "They'll fight to the last, Admiral. They're cornered, and cornered beasts are the most dangerous. They still possess considerable firepower, even if their morale is shattered." Vorn nodded, his expression grim but resolute. "They are, but they are also predictable. They will consolidate their remaining forces, attempt a final desperate stand, perhaps at Helios Prime itself. We will give them that stand, but not on their terms, not in their fortress." He zoomed in on a single isolated star system at the very heart of the Federation's remaining territory, a system known for its volatile star and asteroid fields, the Seraphim Belt. "It will be the final theater of our war. We will lure them there, and we will break them utterly, not just their ships, but their will to oppress." The Ghost Empire had revealed itself. No longer a whisper, but a resonant, undeniable shout that echoed through the galaxy. The galaxy, once apathetic to humanity's plight, now watched with bated breath, their fate inextricably linked to this new enigmatic power. Humanity had come from the brink of extinction, built an empire from defiance and desperation, and was now poised to reshape the very power structures of the cosmos. The Federation's reign was ending not with a bang, but with the methodical, silent dismantlement by the very species they had condemned. The stars, which had never been kind to humanity, were about to witness a new dawn or a new darkness waiting to be revealed. The Ghost had become a force, and its presence was no longer merely a haunting. It was a new dawn or a new darkness waiting to be revealed. The final act was about to begin, not just for the Federation, but for humanity itself. The question remained after the shadows: what light would humanity cast upon the stars? Would they become the very tyrants they fought, or forge a truly different path? The answer lay in the crucible of the coming final battle. Part 3. The Crucible of Ghosts. The Seraphim Belt was a place of cosmic chaos. A vast, perpetually churning field of volatile asteroids, gas giants with unstable magnetic fields and rogue stellar fragments, all orbiting a binary star system that periodically flared with blinding plasma-laced coronal mass ejections. It was a navigation nightmare, a sensor-scrambling labyrinth, and a graveyard for countless ill-fated expeditions. For the Federation, it represented the ultimate defensive stronghold, a natural barrier against any conventional assault, a place where their sheer numbers could theoretically overwhelm any foe. For the Ghost Empire, under Admiral Vorn's chillingly precise command, it was the perfect stage for their final act. a testament to their unorthodox warfare, their mastery of deception, and the boundless, adaptable nature of human ingenuity. Admiral Vorn stood on the Wraith's bridge, the holographic projection of the Seraphim belt swirling before him like an angry cosmic painting, its swirling gas clouds and flashing energy discharges rendered in stark, terrifying detail. "Their arrogance is as predictable as their fear," he murmured, his gaze piercing the simulated chaos, seeing not obstacles but opportunities. "They believe this chaos protects them. They'll never suspect it's precisely what we intend to use against them. We will turn their fortress into their grave." KL, standing beside him, his arms crossed, pointed to a cluster of particularly dense asteroid fields glowing faintly with strategic markers. "Our deep probe drones confirm significant Federation deployment here. They've established concealed staging points hidden behind gravitic anomalies and dense dust clouds. Standard defensive formations, rigid and inflexible. They're waiting for a frontal assault, Admiral, a grand, glorious charge that will exhaust our fleets. They expect us to play by their rules. And they will receive a ghost," Vorn stated, a grim smile touching his lips, a flicker of the old human ruthlessness that had burned so brightly in the dark. He turned to Ori, who was deep in her own world, a technopathic trance. Her fingers traced intricate patterns on a data slate, a constant stream of complex binary code scrolling across her visor, a testament to the intricate neural networks she commanded. Ori, the new synchronization protocols. "Are they ready? Our final illusion hinges on perfect harmony." "Ready, Admiral?" She confirmed, her voice, a low, confident hum, a melodic resonance that seemed to vibrate with the very data she commanded. "Every vessel in the fleet is linked, not just by secure comms, but by a shared, synchronized neural network. We'll move as one mind, one collective consciousness, responding with unprecedented speed and precision. Our cloaking fields will no longer just mask us. They will phase shift in unison with the belt's natural energy fluctuations, becoming extensions of the chaos itself. They won't see us. They'll feel us as echoes, as phantom readings, as nothing at all. We are the Seraphim belt, and the Seraphim belt is us." This was the culmination of centuries of human technological development, a desperate race against oblivion, not just advanced cloaking, but integrated psionics, a symbiotic relationship between human consciousness and machine, a fusion of mind and matter. Auri had pioneered the technique, allowing a single human mind to subtly influence and synchronize the complex systems of an entire fleet, turning them into a cohesive, near-sentient entity. The Ghost Fleet wasn't just ships. It was a collective extension of human will, a living, breathing network of defiance, a terrifying embodiment of the unyielding human spirit. The Federation's final stand was led by Grand Admiral Torvin, a grizzled, battle-hardened tactician of the powerful Vexor species known for his relentless pursuit of victory and his unshakable faith in Federation might. He commanded the Federation's remaining core fleet, a formidable armada of heavy cruisers, carriers, and destroyers, all equipped with the latest anti-stealth technology and experimental sensor arrays. He had chosen the Seraphim Belt as his final battleground, confident that its treacherous environment would negate humanity's elusive tactics and force them into a conventional direct confrontation where Federation numerical superiority would prevail. "They will not vanish here," Torvin roared to his bridge crew, his voice booming through the comms, resonating with a desperate, almost manic conviction. "This nebula will shred their cloaks. This gravity will crush their evasive maneuvers. We will bait them. We will force them into a conventional fight, and then we will unleash the full, unholy might of the Federation upon them. Their humanity will be extinguished in the fires of their own hubris." His plan was deceptively simple: establish a massive defensive perimeter around Helios Prime, the Federation capital, using the Seraphim Belt as a choke point. Patrols would be heavily augmented, scanning every anomaly, every stray energy signature with fanatical zeal. Their most powerful energy dampeners were deployed, hoping to disrupt the Ghost Fleet's stealth systems, creating zones of forced visibility. They had even deployed experimental resonance emitters, designed to disrupt the subtle harmonics of human-designed cloaking fields. The Ghost Fleet entered the Seraphim Belt, not as a unified armada, but as thousands of tiny, undetectable fragments dispersing like dust in the wind. Small scout ships, agile combat drones, and even specialized infiltration suits phased into reality for fractions of a second, laying down undetectable sensor mines and quantum disruptors. These devices didn't explode. They generated subtle, localized space-time distortions, creating ephemeral ghost trails that would confuse Federation sensors, leading them on wild goose chases, forcing them to expend precious resources and mental energy chasing shadows. They were the ultimate psychological weapon, sowing doubt and paranoia. The first week of the engagement was a psychological war of attrition. Federation patrols chased phantoms across the volatile expanse of the belt. Their advanced scanners reported enemy vessels appearing and disappearing in impossible locations, ships warping in and out of existence in defiance of known physics. Communications were riddled with phantom signals, distorted whispers of human voices speaking ancient Earth languages, fragments of long-forgotten human music, or corrupted military codes from battles long past, subtly interleaved with their own secure comms. Federation crews grew increasingly paranoid, exhausted firing at shadows, turning on their own comrades in moments of extreme stress, believing their own minds were turning against them. "Admiral, another phantom contact in grid Gamma 7, a Federation officer yelled, sweat beading on his brow, his eyes wide with a combination of fear and sleep deprivation. "Our readings show a full cruiser-class vessel then. Gone nothing, but the readings were solid. I swear they were solid." Torvin slammed his fist on his console, a crack echoing through the bridge. "It's a trick, it's a calculated deception. They're trying to break our morale. Hold formation. Do not fire on unsubstantiated contacts. Maintain discipline." But even he, the unyielding admiral, could feel the insidious doubt creeping in, a cold tendril of fear clutching at his heart. Was this truly a trick, or was humanity defying the very laws of reality, becoming something more than mere flesh and blood? Auri, from the Wraith's dimly lit command center, orchestrated this symphony of deception with an almost ethereal calm. Her mind linked to thousands of distributed processors across the Ghost. Fleet processed astronomical amounts of data, predicting Federation responses down to the microsecond, calculating optimal phase shift timings, and deploying subtle, reality-bending illusions. "We are not just ghosts, Admiral," she whispered to Vorn, her voice almost a purr. "We are the nightmares of their own technology, the glitches in their perfect predictable machine. We are the entropy they never accounted for." Then came the second phase, targeted infrastructure disruption, and the systematic demoralization of Federation ground forces. The Ghost Fleet didn't engage Federation warships directly in prolonged combat. Instead, their cloaked infiltration ships slipped past defensive lines, targeting the Federation's support infrastructure within the belt-hidden fuel depots, remote repair stations, and critical communication relays. These silent strikes crippled the Federation's ability to sustain its long-term deployment in the treacherous environment. Fuel ships vanished mid-transfer, their last transmissions filled with static. Repair crews found their stations mysteriously offline, their diagnostic systems overridden by complex alien-designed malware, their self-repair drones turning against them. The Federation's logistical network, stretched thin by the ongoing liberation campaign, began to fray at the seams, leaving their vast fleet stranded and vulnerable. On colonial worlds still under Federation occupation, Ghost Empire infiltrators, often disguised as newly liberated individuals, would use the captured Federation comms networks to broadcast manipulated Federation casualty reports amplified, distress calls from their own beleaguered forces, and snippets of highly damaging internal Federation policy debates regarding the abandonment of outer colonies. This psychological warfare was designed to sow panic and discord among the remaining Federation loyalists and break the morale of their weary soldiers. Admiral Torvin's frustration mounted, his rage burning through the comms. "They're strangling us. They're not fighting. They're evaporating our support. We need to find their core fleet. We need a target. Deploy the hyperscan arrays. Burn through the nebula if you have to." His desperation was beginning to override his tactical discipline. Vorn, anticipating this desperation, gave the chillingly calm order. "Begin the lure. Ghost Fleet execute Whisper Echo protocol. Kale, prepare the final trap coordinates. Auri, maintain system integrity. We must not be detected until the precise moment." The Whisper Echo protocol was a masterpiece of deception, a calculated gambit designed to draw the Federation into a predetermined kill zone. A small, carefully selected group of ghost vessels, including the Wraith itself, would deliberately allow their cloaks to shimmer just on the edge of detection, mimicking the energy signatures of a full-scale assault fleet. They would lead the Federation on a perilous chase through the most unstable regions of the Seraphim Belt, where asteroid fields pulsed with rogue magnetic anomalies, uncharted gravitic wells and plasma storms raged with unpredictable fury. They would appear, disappear, leave faint energy trails, all designed to make Torvin believe he was close to finally cornering his elusive foe. Admiral Torvin, seeing the tantalizing promise of a tangible enemy, a chance to finally land a decisive blow, fell for it, hook, line, and sinker. His desire for vengeance clouded his tactical judgment. Full pursuit, all heavy cruisers focus fire on those signatures. This is our chance, we will crush them. Bring every available fighter wing to bear, don't let them escape. The Federation fleet, massive and lumbering, surged forward, abandoning their careful formations in their desperate eagerness to engage. They chased the flickering ghosts through treacherous asteroid fields, their shields groaning under the onslaught of rogue plasma storms, their navigation systems screaming warnings of impending collisions, their warp cores strained to their limits. The Ghost Fleet, smaller and more agile, weaved through the chaos with impossible grace, its synchronized cloaks shimmering just beyond, Federation targeting locks, drawing them deeper and deeper into the labyrinthine heart of the belt towards the final hidden trap. As the Federation fleet plunged deeper, their sensors blinded by the belt's natural interference and the Ghost Empire's artificial echoes, Vorn gave the final defining order. Execute reverberation protocol. Auri, initiate the full system lockdown. Kale, activate the spatial anchors. We are closing the trap. The reverberation protocol was the Ghost Empire's ultimate weapon, not of destruction, but of absolute terrifying incapacitation. It was a multi-spectrum resonant frequency attack designed to overload and disrupt every known Federation technological system, simultaneously bypassing any known countermeasure. Auri, acting as the Nexus, channeled her immense technopathic abilities through the synchronized Ghost Fleet, transforming every ship into a colossal distributed energy projector, a symphony of targeted interference. Kale, meanwhile, activated the spatial anchors, covertly deployed gravitic dampeners that solidified localized pockets of spacetime, effectively creating invisible, inescapable cages within the belt's volatile environment. A wave of invisible dissonant force swept through the Seraphim Belt. It wasn't a beam or a blast. It was a frequency, a profound, agonizing hum that vibrated through every circuit, every power conduit, every sensor array, every nervous system of every sentient being on a Federation ship. Federation ships caught in the heart of the belt began to fail catastrophically. Lights flickered and died, plunging bridges into chilling darkness. Engines sputtered, then went cold, their colossal vessels drifting aimlessly. Weapon systems locked up their targeting computers, spewing corrupted data, their plasma conduits humming with uncontrolled, useless energy. Shields flickered and vanished, leaving the massive vessels vulnerable and exposed. But most chillingly, their communication systems went completely silent, filled only with the faint, rhythmic echoing sound of a human heartbeat, amplified to a deafening roar within their very minds. It was a primal, inescapable sound that bypassed logic and filled them with a chilling, existential dread, the beating pulse of the very species they had sought to erase. Admiral Torvin watched in horror as his bridge dimmed, the holographic tactical display dissolving into shimmering static. His own command chair whined its power, failing, trapping him in place. "What is this? What are they doing?" He screamed, his voice raw with disbelief, his reptilian eyes wide with terror. "It's not a weapon, it's a plague. A complete and utter system failure." His lead science officer, a frantic Xylorian who had been forced into Federation service, staggered forward, clutching his head, a thin stream of iridescent blood trickling from his olfactory organs. "Admiral, it's a resonance, a universal frequency. It's targeting the fundamental operating system of every Federation component. It's not destroying them. It's undoing them. It's making them forget how to function. It's like their very code is being rewritten by a different hand." Within minutes, the mighty Federation fleet, once the undisputed masters of the galaxy, was reduced to an armada of colossal inert hulks, drifting aimlessly amidst the chaos of the Seraphim Belt. Their crews disoriented, terrified, and some driven to madness by the incessant rhythmic heartbeat in their minds, were trapped in silent, powerless vessels, their once proud war machines nothing more than giant, useless debris. The Ghost Fleet had achieved the impossible total victory without a single direct engagement, without firing a single shot that destroyed life. Vorn watched from the wraith, his eyes calm, reflecting the cold light of the dying Federation ships. "They are not dead," he stated, his voice devoid of triumph, only a quiet, almost melancholic resolve. "They are merely contained, and they are listening. They will remember this. We will ensure it." The Ghost Fleet emerged from the nebula, no longer cloaked by necessity, but rather radiating a quiet, palpable power. A silent procession of dark, sleek ships moving among the lifeless Federation armada like vultures over a graveyard, but vultures who brought salvation, not death. They deployed boarding parties not to kill, but to secure data, to dismantle weapon systems, and crucially, to provide aid to the now helpless alien crews. Human medics tended to traumatized Federation soldiers. Human engineers worked to stabilize failing life support systems. It was a stark, bewildering display of mercy, proving that humanity's vengeance was not indiscriminate, that their purpose was not mere destruction. They were not butchers, they were liberators, and their victory would be a testament to a different kind of power. News of the Battle of the Seraphim Belt, or the Silent Fall, as it became known across the galaxy, shattered the remaining vestiges of Federation authority. Planets that had still hesitated to declare independence now did so en masse, emboldened by the complete and utter collapse of the Federation's military might. Admiral Tyro, back at Helios Prime, received the devastating reports, his reptilian face pale with shock, his scales dull with despair. "It's over," he whispered, the words barely audible, his voice devoid of its usual venom. "It's all over. They have won, and they didn't even fight us." The Federation Council in an emergency session voted overwhelmingly to surrender. There was no other choice. Their fleets were crippled, their supply lines non-existent, their communication networks silent, and their people were terrified of an enemy they couldn't see, couldn't fight, and couldn't comprehend. The Galactic Order, once a monolithic, unyielding structure, was crumbling into dust. Admiral Vorn arrived at Helios Prime, not in a grand warship, but in a small, unadorned transport, its simple human design, a stark contrast to the colossal, ornate Federation vessels that lay inert in orbit. He walked through the grand halls of the Federation Council, once symbols of immutable power and unyielding authority, now echoing with the whispers of defeat and the shuffling feet of demoralized guards. The Federation Council members, a diverse collection of alien species from across the galaxy, waited for him, their faces, a mixture of fear, resignation, and bewildered awe, unable to fathom the power that had brought them to their knees. "We surrender," stated the lead Federation Councilman, a venerable elder of the peaceful Lumina species, his bioluminescent skin dimming with humility, his voice trembling with the weight of centuries of galactic dominance brought to an abrupt end. "We accept your terms. What are they, Admiral Vorn? What demands do you place upon the United Galactic Federation? Will you enslave us as we enslaved others? Will you enact your revenge?" Vorn stood before them not as a conqueror, but as a ghost, made manifest a living embodiment of the past and the future. He carried no weapons, wore no grand uniform, displayed no visible symbols of power, only the quiet, immense weight of humanity's past suffering and the profound promise of its future. "Our terms are simple," he stated, his voice calm yet resonating with an authority born of suffering, defiance, and hard-won victory. "The immediate and unconditional dissolution of the United Galactic Federation. The immediate cessation of all exploitative practices, all forced labor, all unjust taxation. The establishment of independent, self-governing worlds for all previously subjugated species, and the unconditional lifting of all sanctions against humanity effective immediately." The council members exchanged shocked glances, then a collective gasp. They had expected subjugation, retribution, perhaps even annihilation, not liberation for all, not a complete dismantling of the very system of power they had upheld. "And what then?" the Lumina Elder asked, his eyes searching Vorn's, a flicker of bewildered hope in their depths. "What of humanity do you intend to replace our empire with your own? To rule us as we ruled others?" Vorn looked at each of them, his gaze unwavering, cutting through their fear and their assumptions. "We build no empire of dominion, no throne of conquest. We build an empire of choice, of freedom, of cooperation. We will establish a new galactic concord, one built on mutual respect, shared resources, and the pursuit of collective progress, not fear, not exploitation, not military might, and humanity. Humanity will take its place among the stars, not as conquerors, but as partners, as equals. But never again as victims. Never again will a species be left to die." The implications of his words were staggering. A complete restructuring of galactic power. An end to centuries of Federation dominance. It was a terrifying yet profoundly hopeful new dawn. The seeds of a new galactic order were being sown not in blood and iron, but in a silent, terrifying yet merciful victory. The task of dismantling the Federation and establishing the new galactic concord was monumental, a process that would take decades, even centuries, to fully realize. Admiral Vorn Kael and Ari became the core architects of this new era, their expertise indispensable. Vorn oversaw the unprecedented military disarmament, ensuring that no species could ever again accumulate such destructive power without accountability, ensuring that the technology to unleash another silent fall was safeguarded, or shared only under strict protocols. Kael, with his strategic brilliance, helped design the foundational frameworks for the new Concord, establishing fair trade routes, equitable resource distribution, and diplomatic channels that emphasized mediation and understanding over the conflict. He worked tirelessly to establish a galactic justice system that was impartial and truly universal. And Auri, with her unparalleled technopathic abilities, purged the galaxy's networks of Federation surveillance, ensuring true digital freedom and privacy for all species, and helped integrate new, secure, and decentralized communication systems for the newly liberated worlds. She also helped establish secure, neutral information hubs, vast repositories of galactic history and knowledge, ensuring that truth and history were preserved, not controlled, empowering species to learn from the past. On Earth, the world that had been left to die, the news of the Federation's collapse and the rise of the Galactic Concord was met with cautious celebration. Elias Vorn, now a very old man, his face deeply lined but his eyes bright with a profound sense of peace, stood on the rebuilt, thriving fields of Soraya 4 watching his granddaughter play amidst bioluminescent crops. "They did it, Father," his daughter said, her voice filled with a quiet, profound pride. "They really did it. A new galaxy. A free galaxy. A galaxy of choices," Elias replied, a faint, knowing smile on his lips. "And choices always have consequences, both good and bad. The hardest part begins now, building a peace that lasts, a peace that truly honors the sacrifices made." He thought of Admiral Vorn, his distant descendant, the ghost who had walked among the stars and dismantled an empire. He knew the fight was not truly over, that challenges would always arise in the vast, complex tapestry of the cosmos. The Ghost Fleet had won the war, but the true test lay in building a peace that would last, a legacy that would ensure humanity's survival not through force but through wisdom. Arlandrax, having lived long enough to see the Federation fall and the nascent Concord rise, now served as a revered advisor to the new leadership, teaching lessons of humility, collaboration, and the dangers of unchecked power. He watched as the first human-built ships, no longer cloaked by necessity, but out of quiet pride and a respect for their heritage, began to openly traverse the galaxy, carrying aid, knowledge, and hope, fostering new alliances and cultural exchanges. He knew the Ghost Empire had paid a terrible, almost unbearable price for its survival, for its very existence. But he also knew that humanity, forged in the fires of neglect, hardened by centuries of struggle, had found its true strength not in vengeance, but in the fierce, unyielding will to protect, to liberate, and to build a better future for all. The galaxy had pushed humanity to its brink, and in doing so had inadvertently unleashed a force that would reshape its very destiny, proving that the most profound revolutions often begin not with a roar, but with a silent, determined whisper in the dark. The stars would never be kind to humanity, perhaps, but humanity would never again be just a victim under them. The Ghost Empire, born of shadows, had brought an unexpected, profound light to the cosmos. And as the sun rose over a new, hopeful galactic dawn, the whispers of the past echoed not with despair, but with a quiet, powerful promise of a future where true freedom could finally flourish among the stars. The work was far from over, the challenges immense, but for the first time in millennia, the galactic night was filled with genuine hope and the promise of a truly shared destiny. Humanity, the banished, the forgotten, had come home to the stars, not as supplicants, but as architects of a new, boundless future.